Hello, my name is Malcolm X. My original name was Malcolm Little, and I was born on May 19th, 1925, in Omaha, Nebraska. My mother, Louisa Norton Little, was a homemaker occupied with the family's 8 children. My father, Earl Little, was an outspoken Baptist and a supporter of black nationalist leaders, Marcus Garvey. Earl's civil rights activism prompted death threats from the white supremacist organization Black Legion, forcing the family to relocate twice before Malcolm's 4th birthday. Regardless of the Littles' effort to elude the Legion in 1929, their Lansing, Michigan home was burned to the ground. 2 years later, Earl's body was found lying across the town's trolley tracks. Police ruled both incidents as accidents, but the Littles were certain that members of the Black Legion were responsible for these deaths. Lewis suffered emotional breakdown several years after the death of her husband and was committed to a mental institution, while her children were split up among various foster homes and orphanages. Recalling his days in school, he used the time to further his education. It was during this period of self-enlightenment that Malcolm's brother would visit and discuss his recent conversion to the Muslim religion. Malcolm began to study the teachings of NOI leader Elijah Muhammad. Muhammad taught the white society actively worked to keep African Americans from empowering themselves and achieving political, economic, and social success. Among other goals, the NOI fought for a state of their own, separate from one inhabited by white people. By the time he was paroled in 1952, I was a devoted follower with the new Synonym X. I considered Little a slave name and chose the X to signify my lost tribal name. Intelligent and article, I was appointed as a minister and national spokesman of the Nation of Islam. Elijah Muhammad also charged him with establishing new mosques in cities such as Detroit, Michigan, and Harlem. I utilized newspaper columns as well as radio and television to communicate the NOI's message across the United States. His charisma, drive, and conviction attracted an outstanding number of new members. I was largely credited with increasing membership of the NOI from 500 in 1952 to 30,000 in 1963. The crowds and controversy surrounding me made a media magnet. I was featured in a week-long television special with Mike Wallace in 1952 called "The Hate That Hate Produced." The program explored the fundamentals of the NOI and tracked Malcolm's emergency as one of its most important leaders. After the special, I was faced with the uncomfortable reality that my fame had eclipsed that of my mentor, Elijah Muhammad. In addition to the media, my personality had captured the government's attention. As membership in the NOI continued to grow, FBI agents infiltrated the organization and secretly placed bugs, wiretaps, cameras, and other surveillance equipment to monitor the groups. My faith was dealt a crushing blow at the height of the civil rights movement in 1963. I learned that my mentor and leader, Elijah Muhammad, was secretly having relations with as many as 6 women with the Nation of Islam organization. As if that were not enough, I found out that some of these relationships have resulted in children. Since joining the NOI, I have strictly adhered to the teachings of Muhammad, which included remaining celibate until his marriage to Betty Schaubs in 1958. I refused Muhammad's request to help cover up the affairs and subsequent children. He was deeply hurt by Muhammad's actions because he had previously considered him a living prophet. I also felt guilty about the masses he had led to join the NOI, which he now felt was a fraudulent organization built on too many lies to ignore. Shortly after his shocking discovery, I received criticism for a comment I made regarding the assassination of President JFK, John F. Kennedy. Never foresaw that the chickens would come home to roost soon, said me. After the statement, Elijah Muhammad silenced Malcolm for 90 days. I, however, suspected I was silenced for another reason. In March 1964, I terminated his relationship with the NOI. Unable to look past Muhammad's deception, I decided to found my own religious organization, the Muslim Moscow Incorporated. That same year, I went on a pilgrimage to Mecca, which proved to be life-alerting for me. For the first time, I shared my thoughts and beliefs with different cultures and found the response to be overwhelmingly positive. When I returned, I said, blonde-haired, blue-eyed men I could call my brothers. I returned to the U.S. with a new outlook on everything, on interrogation, and a new hope for the future. This time when I spoke, instead of just preaching to African Americans, I had a message for our race. After I resigned my position in the Nation of Islam and renounced Elijah Muhammad, relations between the two had become incredibly violent. FBI informers working undercover in the NOI warned officials that I had been marked for assassination. One undercover officer had even ordered to help plant a bomb in my car. After repeated attempts on my life, I rarely traveled anywhere without bodyguards. On February 14, 1965, the home where I lived and my 4 daughters lived in, East Elmhurst, New York, was bombed. Luckily, my family escaped physical injury. 1 week later, however, my enemies were successful in their ruthless attempt at a speaking engagement in the Manhattan's Auburn Ballroom on February 21st, 1965. 3 gunmen rushed me on stage. They shot me 15 times. I was pronounced dead at New York's Columbia Hospital. 1,500 people attended my funeral on February 27, 1965 at the Faith Temple Church of God in Christ. Now, after the ceremony, friends took the shovels away from the waiting grave diggers and buried my Malcolm themselves. Later that year, Betty gave birth to 3 twin daughters. Malcolm's assassin, Talmadge Hayer, Norman Butler, they were all convicted of first-degree murders. In March 1966, the 3 men were all members of the Nation of Islam. My legacy has moved through generations as the subject of numerous documentaries, books, and movies. A tremendous resurgence of interest in 1992 when director Spike Lee released the acclaimed movie Malcolm X. The film received Oscar nominations for Best Actor Denzel Washington and Best Costume Design. I am buried at the Friendslick Cemetery in Hartsdale, New York. And this is my poster.